Hello, good afternoon, San Diego, and welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Yinka Freeman, and my pronouns are she, hers. I'm excited you are able to join us for the next hour as we celebrate LGBTQ plus Black history and LGBTQ plus Black futures. We have a wonderful group of panelists today who will join me in a conversation about who we are, our contributions, and our hopes for the future. At this point, I would like to welcome our fabulous guests to the screen, Vertez Burkes, Pamela Hollowell, and Jordan Daniels. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome, welcome. How is everyone doing today?
Good.
Good, great. Let's get started. So let's go around and introduce ourselves by sharing your name, your pronouns, and any relevant affiliation you would like to share. I'll go ahead and get started. So once again, I'm Yinka. My pronouns are she, hers. I am I'm a Black business owner. I own my own event planning company here in San Diego, and I am a lead volunteer with San Diego Pride. I do lots of volunteering in their events and philanthropy department. Jordan, why don't we get started with you?
Great. Thank you so much, Inka. I hope y'all can hear me okay. What's good, y'all? My name is Jordan Daniels, pronounced he, him, his. I'm doing really good today, and I am here on behalf of the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition. It's such a mouthful to say. San Diego LGBTQ Coalition, as one of the general council members, supports the community's work.
Thank you. Vertez?
Well, before I say my name, I must say that whatever I say here today does not reflect on the Black community, nor they're only my thoughts. And the reason I'm saying this is because I have some weird different type thoughts. And I don't want anyone to think that the whole LGBTQ plus community thinks that way. I was born in Florida, raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'm the oldest of three sisters and one brother. Attended BCC, which is now Bethune-Cookman University, for my BA in sociology, and NYU for my MA in special education. How I got to San Diego is another story. But I truly believe that the way we think is based on our experiences, the way the things that we've seen in life. So that is why I put that in. I can love anybody as long as they treat me nice and I'm friendly with them. But I can only fall in love with a woman. And my name is Vertez Burkes. And the most relevant group I'm with is LSD, Lesbians of San Diego.
All right, thank you, Vertez. And Pamela?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Pamela Hollowell. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the president of the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition. I also am a licensed marriage and family therapist at the San Diego LGBT Community Center and board member of the Gender Fluid Collective.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and welcome as well. I did want to mention that Pamela will have to log off a little early today, but thank you so much for giving us your time and being here with us. Before we go any further, it is important to note that Vertez Burkes holds the honor of being San Diego Pride's first Black co-chair in 1992, and it was the first time in the history that San Diego Pride's board was headed by two people of color, with Vertez chairing alongside with Larry Baza, who we lost to COVID-19 this past Saturday. Vertez, is there anything you'd like to share about your time as co-chair or any fond memories you have with Larry?
The most fun memories I have with Larry is that we used to meet for coffee at least 2 times a week because we were like scared that we were going to make some mistakes or something. So we had to get our program together. So we had our own meetings on the side to make sure that we were thinking the same way when we went in to present it to the rest of the board. I miss Larry. I just found out a couple of days ago that he had passed away, but I enjoyed that time on the board. It was fun. And it was also the first time that we had a board that was going to last from year to year. I got here in '85, and during that time, each year we would have a different set of people that would come together 6 months before it was a Pride, and they would start raising funds and things. So this was going to be a permanent board and it's still there till today. So.
Wow, that's great. I can only imagine how many more memories and fun memories you have of Larry. So thank you for sharing that with us, Vertez. Now we will go through a series of previously submitted questions, and if time does permit, we will take questions from the audience. So please, throughout the conversation, if you have any questions, put them in the comment sections and we will try to get to them. All right, first question of the day. If you are representing an organization today, please go ahead and share with us the organization that you're representing and a little bit about that organization. Is there anyone that would like to start first?
Sure.
Pamela?
Hi. So I represent the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition along with Fabulous Jordan, who's here today. Our coalition began in 2015, and we operate as a central hub of resources for folks that identify as both Black and part of the LGBTQ community. Utilizing our social media platforms, we try to uplift and provide services that allow the Black LGBTQ community to be aware of programs, events, groups, providers, including mental health providers, and other services that help to enrich and empower and bring more spaces for the Black LGBTQ community. In that little bit of work that we do, which is really a lot of work, we try to continue to foster more Black LGBTQ affirming spaces and continue to try to educate and teach and just empower a new group of Black LGBTQ leaders. That's all I'll say.
Jordan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just thank you for asking. I'd just love to dovetail off that and just say, like, at its core, the mission of the coalition is to build a thriving Black LGBTQ plus community. And I really just want to give an affirmation for a moment that we are on the way to doing that. This past year has been a really interesting and intense year for many folks, as we've seen. And we stepped into. Pam and I had stepped into this role right at the beginning of the year, and we had to really adapt to what the world was going to be like. But one thing I think about, sorry, something else just came in my ear. That was a weird, weird sound. But one thing I want to raise is, like, now we have a full board and full team that is here to pick up this work, and we also are now 501c3 certified, meaning that we now can actually be like I don't want to say institution because that has a lot of implications, but an organization that fully represents represents the community and is by the community itself. So what we are doing is really trying to restore, I don't want to say give because that means that we didn't have it to begin with, but we are restoring agency that we have had as Black LGBTQ folks in San Diego to represent ourselves, to help ourselves thrive, to help ourselves build spaces where we can find joy beyond pain. We don't have to regurgitate trauma. Like, I really want to just raise that. And we're doing a lot of work also now connecting with different schools. Like, we've done several we've done several workshops with SDSU and their students about what it looks like to be Black and queer and trans here in San Diego. So I just want to like raise that we're really trying to connect the community at all access points, and really create like a for us by us type deal here, because that hasn't been apparent at all in San Diego, at least in my experiences living here for the past 8 years.
What are some of the programs that you currently have as part of the Black LGBTQ plus coalition?
Great follow-up question. Two things that we launched this past year was the Damon J. Scholarship Fund. So I mean, programs would be an interesting word because programs implies that we would have to have like a customer base to really do something for, and I'm thinking of programs like the centers programs, and I don't think we're there yet because now we're finally establishing ourselves as an organization, and Pam can totally chime in too. But like we launched the Damon J. Shearer Scholarship Fund, who was named after the previous president, Damon J. Shearer, who is an absolutely amazing person. And this whole point is to really help people, particularly those who are leaving high school and going to college, to have some type of financial assistance. Obviously, it isn't like a lot; it will not pay for someone's full schooling, but it really gives like prioritization of young Black folks, young queer trans Black folks who don't have that agency otherwise. And then we also have the Black Trans Fund as well. So for trans folks in San Diego who are experiencing hardship, that need help with getting like access to prescription medication, or sorry, medication, not prescriptions, we're not doctors, like maybe hormone therapy, or even just getting a place to stay for the night or the week, or getting emergency access to food. Like, those are two things that we have launched in terms of like monetary programs. We are also really actually considering now what like programs we'll have this next year. So one thing that we historically have done is done an annual conference. Last year we did not do an annual conference because we were like, how can we shift this entirely to virtual? But I think this year we do have in the wheelhouse, in our minds, to do a conference that will probably, I think, all virtually. And then we're also planning on doing work that meets people at different intersections, like partnering with Gender Fluid Collective, partnering more with schools to see how we connect with schools and college, university students, how to connect with youth, but like young adults above 18, obviously, and what their future may look like. That's just a little bit. Pam, please chime in more. I feel like I just am rambling about it.
No, you did an absolutely wonderful job. I couldn't have said it better myself, so thank you. In addition to that, the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition has been filming a documentary that we started at the beginning of this year, that we've coined the term Black LGBTQ Lives of San Diego, where we have been interviewing different community members to discuss both the intersectionality of Blackness and LGBTQ-ness in a variety of domains of living in San Diego. And we've also been talking to a lot of the service providers, including the center, and some other folks that work with or are trying to work with the Black LGBTQ community. One of the main things I think that's really exciting about this year is the fact that with a full board of wonderful leaders, we are able to foster more partnerships with other organizations, other groups like the San Diego Latinx Coalition, Capimeda. And so I'm really glad that we are in this position to now be able to empower and just work together for solidarity.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Vertez, how about you? Would you like me to repeat?
Well, I can't talk for the whole Black community, but I will say this: great minds run on the same track. I'm with a group called LSD, Lesbians of San Diego. And what we're doing is similar to what you're doing, is that we figured that the only way to get our history out of what we have done in San Diego is to put it out ourselves. So what we've been doing is we've taken lesbians from 1970 to 2000. We're just doing that period now. And where we're interviewing you, you tell all about what you did during that time, what groups you were in, and how San Diego was developing during that period. And then we have our website that, you know, we put all the lesbians on. That way, we were thinking that when a student comes up in 20 or 30 years and say, were there any women in San Diego? You know, any lesbians in San Diego during that period? Because our history, if you look at the history in the museums, they don't really say that. So here's a way you can look back and say, oh yeah, look how many groups they had. And they were there, 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 and there. And the problem that we're having, there's always a problem, is that if you went onto the site, you would ask the question, say, where were the Black lesbians? Were there any Black lesbians in San Diego? That is one of the problems that we're having, is bringing out more Black lesbians to tell their story. Because even though we can marry, we can do everything now, there's a certain freedom that we have as gay and lesbians. You know, technically you can't lose your job or anything like that. There's still somewhat of a fear in us. And I believe that is some of the reasons that we're not coming out. Like a friend of mine says, I said, well, are you a lesbian? She said, well, I don't like that title. I don't like titles. I said, what title? She said, I don't want anybody to know what's in my bedroom. So we're still connecting lesbianism with what you do in bed. And, you know, if you never have sex and you're lesbian, you're lesbian. If you never have sex and you're straight, you're straight. I mean, that doesn't change you, but we're still carrying that. And so that's a little hard. That's my little piece of trash. That's only my thoughts on that. Other people might think differently, but I think that's some of it. And that's what we're doing, LSD. You can find us online.
So if there are any out and proud Black lesbians and they want to get on that website, how can they get in contact with you to have that happen?
Well, I got a Facebook page, but they could go on lsd.org and find the page and the people and some of their stories. We're working on that. So that's what we're doing. All the other things I've retired from because we don't have those anymore because, like, you're free to go wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do. So the groups that we had back in the 70s, and there were many of them, but they were closeted groups. You know, you meet here, you meet there, but, you know, you can meet any place now. And that's might be some of the problems we have in meeting other people like ourselves that we might want to talk to. Did I talk too fast?
That was great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You had a lot to say, but it was all good information, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you all have contributed to the Black LGBTQ plus history and futures in one way or another. When you think about these contributions, what is one of your personal proudest moments? What comes up for you when you reflect on this accomplishment? Vertez,
okay. Well, we had a group back in, and I went back and got the dates, a group called Lagadu, Lesbians and Gays of African Descent United. And that was started by 3 people, Marty Mackey, who's no longer here with us, myself, and a woman by the name of Chris, where she is, she's back in the church now, she's straight. So I just used the first quick name. And what we did was we wanted to find other Black lesbians. That's what we wanted to do in the very beginning. And then we found a few, and then we found gay men. And you say, well, gay men and women sometimes work well together, and we need both of them because it's not enough. There were only 6% of the population was Black back in the 80s, and now it's maybe 6.4. But it was, out of that 6%, you had to take the gays, and that, how many are left? And the rest of them were in church and hiding. You had the black men and white men together. You had, some women of color, but nobody was saying black at that time. So that group was started, and we were the first group that was able, I think the only group that was able to have men and women in there. And we would meet, and at the first part of the meeting, the men would go into one part, the women would go into another, and they would have their little, personal meetings. And then we'd join back together and plan events for the group. And prior to that, it was only women, men, but this was a black, and I videotaped a lot of that. So I'm proud of that, being a member of that group.
What was the name of the group?
Lesbians and Gays of African Descent United. That name came up from one of our members. He's in San Francisco now. Of course, my memory went just that quick, just as you asked me that. But he came up with that. That was good. Nobody's ever heard of it, Ed. That's just how closeted we were.
Well, everyone knows about it now. Pamela, how about you? Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you very much. There's so many things that I'm proud of. And I think one of the things, at least regarding the coalition, I'm proud and honored to be the first Black transgender female president of the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition. I'm glad this year to have more representation of that LGBTQ acronym. We've got non-binary folks, we've got myself, and I'm really glad that we were able to launch the Emergency Black Transgender Fund, because it is so important and crucial in our community. Every year the center does the Transgender Day of Remembrance in November, and it is overwhelmingly Black transgender women who are being killed just for living their lives, existing, trying to survive, trying to take care of medically necessary things like surgery, just having a roof over their head. I'm glad that in California there's more protections, but we've got Black folks that already have more challenges just due to being Black and living Black. #exist Blackly. And then we also have the more challenges that come from being already marginalized in a smaller marginalized community as trans or non-binary. So I'm really honored and glad that we were able to do that. And then another quick thing, because I don't want to talk too long, is I was really glad that when we had our first virtual engagement forum, by the way, really honored to have these leaders in the coalition who went from meeting in person to figuring out how to meet using Zoom and using these other platforms and still being able to take care of themselves, it's hard to serve a community that you are also a part of, that you're also being impacted by. But I'm glad that in our first virtual engagement forum, we heard community members saying they needed a list of providers. They needed access to mental health care. They needed to feel like they knew that there were other Black LGBTQ or Black LGBTQ providers that were able to meet them where they are. And the coalition created this running list of providers and resources on our page. So that's just one of the many things that makes me proud to sit here and represent.
Thank you. Thank you. Jordan, any proud moments for you?
Yes, yeah. I was reflecting on. I'm like, it's hard to say that I feel proud. I think more so because like the work is more than me, and I think I'm also very mindful of the privilege I wield, in particularly in my Blackness and being really light skinned. I know I'm very mindful of that. So it's like I want to say I'm proud of some things, but also I want to say I'm proud, but not in the sense of like I'm proud of me because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not like I don't think I'm going above and beyond. I don't think I deserve like a pat on the back. Like I'm doing what I should be doing, one as a human being, but also like, as a Black person who has privilege, like I'm doing what I should be doing. I think one thing that that there's like an important moment for me, I think was when Damon and I got published in the San Diego Union Tribune last year. Damon's article was about their experience as a Black person, like really more the experience as a Black person in San Diego, and mine was about how there aren't enough dedicated Black spaces in San Diego. I think that was really important for me because again, it wasn't necessarily about me. It's about what I observe and notice, and also as someone who came from the Bay, where like diversity to me was everywhere I looked at. When I moved here, it was nowhere. But within that, like it's like frustrating that it took me as a lesbian to share this, right? That there aren't enough dedicated Black spaces, but I have a privilege of having more access into space that aren't made for me, and that I know are not made for me. Like I know that, and I'm being told it's not made for me, but I have more access than that. And I think it's like I'm proud of it, but also it bothers me because like I did that versus like why are we hearing from my darker skin folks share about how they don't have enough spaces because I can get access to other spaces, and so I think that's what I think about like quite a bit is more where my privilege and power sits. I think education in like period, like when Pam and I were talking earlier today actually about how what we've been a part of this past year has now laid a foundation for this full team. I mean, we went from 4 people to I think we have 12 people now, like we tripled the size. And like what I'm proud of in that is we have 12 full folks now who are really committed to doing this work. And like we helped lay a foundation that was laid for us too. And we get to advance that. And I'm very conscious of the work that I do. I may never see the fruits of that labor. I may never see what comes from that, but what I am a part of and not doing myself what I'm a part of is helping the future have the tools. And so I think I'm proud of seeing how we are advancing the legacy that was given to us. Now we're now passing off to other people. But I want to be mindful that like it's not my legacy, it's not like my personal past moment, it's like what I'm proud of that we've done collectively. But also it could be just be how I see myself in the like space of all this work.
Yeah, you're proud of the collective work that is being put in for the future is what I'm hearing. So
Mm-hmm.
be proud. Of course, be proud, Jordan.
Thank you, Yinka.
Of course.
Could I just say one point that I forgot before in my nervousness?
Of course.
Is that in 1990 we had 2 grand marshals for the Pride Parade, and they were both Black. Cynthia Lawrence Wallace and Fundi. Fundi was the one that named Lagadoo. But I wanted to put that in because that was one of the first times that we had 2 people that were African American Black as the Grand Marshals for Pride.
Thank you, Vertez. History continues being made every single day in a very, very large scale. Large-scale racial reckoning, as people are calling it, that arose from the murder of George Floyd last year, and as we simultaneously fight through the COVID-19 pandemic. What are some of the ways you've seen the Black community in San Diego come together to get through these difficult times? In what ways have you or your organization been involved? Who'd like to go first?
Well, I'm not in an organization now, but what am I seeing?
How have you seen the Black community in San Diego come together within the past year with George Floyd's death, all the racial tension that was happening, and then just on top of that, the pandemic just destroyed our community. Do you know of any organizations that are focused towards the Black community and helping with those causes?
Well, what I'm seeing is Black Lives Matter. I'm seeing that there is a mix. It's not like just Black people are standing there saying that this happened to me and we want things to change. It seems like the groups are coming close, especially the young ones. Maybe not the old ones because we can't walk and run that fast, but it's like we're sending up our good vibrations for them, and they're coming together. And I think that's some of the reason some of us have been killed, and I'm sorry over that. But I think a lot of us are still alive because there has been a mixed correlation there. The mixed groups are coming forth, and people are not shooting into the mixed groups as bad. If it was on like a wall of black people, they would have, we would have been down by now. That's my thoughts. Nobody else told me that, but based on my knowledge and reading and everything, I think we're coming together more, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I echo on that really briefly. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jordan. So I think I would just say, and then I have to go, I'm afraid. I would just say, like, in looking over the past year, as I was just sharing with Jordan before we logged in here, I'm really just looking and seeing a lot of power and resiliency that the Black community is really like moving forward. I see a lot of people standing up and saying that this is not okay, and figuring out ways to enact and dismantle some of these anti-Black racism structures, trying to call out, hey, we need accountability here. Hey, this needs to stop. This stuff has been happening for all these number of years. This is not new. We need to do something about this. I think over looking at just everything very briefly, I'm just really amazed, but also not surprised of the strength and the courage that we as a Black community have, the hope that we continue to have as we continue to move forward and decide, I'm not going to stay here in this place. I'm not going to just lay down and allow these different attacks to continue happening. I'm going to keep speaking up at my work. I'm going to keep posting about things. I'm going to keep uplifting what is anti-Black, what is anti-trans, what's transphobic, what's all of this. And so I guess that's just one thing that I can say about the power that I'm seeing in the Black community standing up and saying, I'm not taking this anymore.
Thank you. Do you have to leave now, Pamela?
I do, yes.
Okay. So, Jordan, before you answer, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today, Pamela. I'm sure everyone out there appreciates hearing your voice.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Pam. So several thoughts I want to try, and like I don't want to take too much doing it, but like you said racial reckoning, and my question is like, okay, but racial reckoning for whom? Because like Black folks we are having a racial reckoning. Like we've been talking, we've been sharing this, we've been saying stop killing us for years upon years upon years upon years. And so I would say, like, one thing I think about is racial reckoning for whom. And I think that's interesting, and that's interesting because since the murder of George Floyd, I think that was like the first time that a lot of mixed groups, particularly white folks, really got to see firsthand and could not look away from how Black lives are constantly treated and like murdered in the streets. And so I was like the reckoning's for them, and so now they're joining us, which is great. But I want to call attention to like how also sad that is, that it really took people making George Floyd a martyr for something, which is really inappropriate. It took these mixed groups and like white folks joining in this work for us to be seen, and I'm like really bothered by that constantly. It makes me really upset. And like that said, like what ways have the Black community come together? Like I think of We All We Got San Diego. I think of Solve for X. I think of Gender Fluid Collective. Like, and I think particularly I would say for We All We Got as Mutual Aid. Like Mutual Aid has had history in Black communities since the 1800s. Like it has been around for so, and now it's like having a resurgence, and we're seeing that, and that's been amazing to witness. It's amazing seeing how GPC and Solve for X have really come out and also really like adapted their strategies for serving people during this time. Black women March for Black Women San Diego as well. I think like that's where I've like really seen a lot of organizations come together, but it wasn't under the guise of like, oh, like we're having a reckoning. It's like finally someone's seeing us, and I think in that way it's nice. Like also a lot of people now are donating a lot of money to organizations, which is cool. But also I think of like where your dollar is going. You know, I work in philanthropy, and I think a lot about people now are just giving money to the problem without having like want to do a systems into something. It's also interesting for myself because I am Black and Jewish, and so I'm also seeing this like reckoning in the Jewish community, as particularly as a Jew of color. There are a lot of Jews of color and a lot of Black Jews and other BIPOC Jews, and so we're seeing this happen simultaneously in our Jewish community too, of how folks are reckoning with what's happened. And so I just like I share that because I'm like a little bit like that statement. And it's not your statement. You can know that. Like that statement like always like makes me feel some type of way because I'm like, the reckoning isn't our reckoning. It's what we've experienced on a daily basis since slavery, and now people are reckoning with it finally. And it's like it only took the end of 300 years to do it. And so that's on that. What ways have we been involved? I think the coalition itself, while the scholarship fund and the Black Trans Fund weren't born out of the pandemic itself, we also we got a lot more money this past year. People have donated us in like tenfold, which is amazing. And now that gives us in a position to do it. But I'm constantly mindful of like, wow, wouldn't have happened if people didn't start feeling bad all of a sudden. And I'm like, it took Breonna Taylor, it took Tatiana Jefferson, it took George Floyd, it took Ahmaud Arbery, like it took those folks, like particularly this past year, for people to really get it. And so I'm like, okay, that's great that we're doing this work now, but like the news cycle's ending, so what are we going to do past that point is what I'm thinking about a lot. That probably didn't like fully answer your question, but I have like a lot of thoughts just around that. But I do want to really give affirmation to the organizations I mentioned earlier, because they really stepped up at a time where we had no pathway. Like we had no pathway to address the pandemic and then address like the further murdering of our folks, and they really stepped up in so many ways and led demonstrations and led protests and led caravans. Like that's some really amazing stuff. And I think for the coalition, we were observing a lot. We were like, okay, what can we do and how do we not like oversaturate this? And now this year we're going to be in a position to also do a lot more to help advance that work too.
You made a statement about, it's been 300 years. So all this leads to my next question, because we've dealt with it for over 300 years, right? The Black community is a very resilient community. The Black LGBTQ plus community is extremely resilient, right? This is so evident in how we have reacted to COVID-19, but this is because this isn't the first time that our community has come together to support each other. Can you think of any other times that our community has shown up for each other, Vertez or Jordan?
I think during a crisis, we always show up for each other. If you go back to '69, when we had it in New York, and believe it or not, where was I in '69? Didn't even know it was happening. That's to show you how separate it was. But at that time, I was in the closet, so I wouldn't have been out there anyway. But we did it then. When I was here, we did it with HIV, because that's when the women came out, because our men were dying. And the women came out and started taking control of everything. That's when I first went into this. Back then, I went into the center and became an online crisis counselor. And that was interesting. Well, I mean, in a pinch, I think we come out for each other. It's during those happy times that you lay back in your house and you say, well, everything's okay. I've done my walking. I've done my crusading, but during hard times, we come out. I think we're there for each other.
I want to just Yeah, sorry. I want to just plus one that I think that's exactly it. Like in times of crisis, and often times of crisis, Black folks and Black women, and I say women with an X, like all women, like are the ones that are leading the charge to support and heal folks. And I'm so mindful of that. I mean to the point that Vertez was made like back in Stonewall, back in the Compton cafeteria riots, back in I think '67, with the AIDS epidemic, like so many ways. I think recently what we've seen, and I hesitate to say this a little bit, but like I think we've seen it with how Black community has Black queer and trans community has really stepped up in terms of holding some of our queer institutions accountable. I mean, particularly like I mean, even Pride and the Center, like we have really stepped up as a community to say like, hey, we aren't having the experiences that you said you're delivering us, and that goes for both of these institutions. And now we're like not just done, we are now willing to hold you all accountable and ourselves accountable to that as well. I think that is something that I think about how we stand for each other now is like, we are realizing that we cannot just come out in times of crisis, that we have to be here 24/7, like presently as possible, which is also frustrating because it sometimes then puts me, it then makes us the ones that have to say something and do something. And I hope people watching this, what they take from this is that they join us in this so we can take a step back and they can carry this work with us. And so yeah, sometimes for us, because if y'all have privilege, like I have privilege, carry the torch for us, and even for myself, for my siblings, like I can carry the torch too. So I think that's how I'm seeing it recently is how we're holding organizations accountable, holding our society accountable, holding our governments accountable, and however that looks like, because it's not always when we think of how power moves, it's not always as easy to do that. But I think that's a way that I'm seeing it happen in real time every day as it unfolds.
Vertez, I saw you nodding and smiling. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, I was just going to follow along with Jordan and say that whatever the generation before me did, it enabled me to do what I did. And hopefully it enabled the generation to come. So it's like passing on the history, even though a lot of history we didn't know when I was growing up, because then it was the Black parent was protecting you. I didn't know we were so segregated, because when I would go with my grandmother downtown in Florida, we would go on Saturdays, and I never thought anything about that, but Saturdays was a time that all Black people were going down shopping. So I would go with them. Wherever I went, I was always at either my grandfather or my grandmother or some adult. So we were constantly protected. And I didn't even realize that until I got to be grown, how we were. And I think maybe that is followed through, and each group is going to help the next. We'll do it.
There's a movement happening, and it seems to be a lot. I think, Vertez, you hit it a little bit of the younger generation.
Yeah.
That is really in the forefront of it. And just like you said, hopefully everything you have done and will lead the next generation to just carry that torch.
It will.
That resiliency torch, right?
Yes.
San Diego County recently declared racism a public health crisis. We can all agree that there is a lot of work that needs to happen in order to end racism and anti-Blackness. In your opinion, what are some of the most urgent things that need to get addressed in order to end anti-Blackness?
Well, I think that we must learn why we don't like something. I had this privilege. When everybody was saying, white people have privilege and DTD, and they never saw their privilege because it's something so natural. And I'm constantly thinking, and I thought, and I had to call my old roommate. I was in the Peace Corps at one time in Liberia. And I remember we went to a party, and that was only a couple houses down from us. But I had to go to the bathroom, so I came back to my house to go. And as I was leaving my house, this woman came running up to me, and she said, "Help me, help me, help me." And I said, well, what's wrong? She said, he's after me. I said, okay, go. I opened my door. I said, go into my house and stay there. And then this guy comes and he starts to tell me, where is she? I want her. And I don't know, from someplace, God himself must have said, stand up. I said, you cannot have her. She's in my house. And this is where I say privilege comes in. I said, I am an American citizen and this house is American territory and you cannot enter it. And he actually believed me. And, you know, he went on. But I asked my roommate, I say, did I use privilege at that moment? Does everyone have a privilege? Now, I would not have used that if I had been in KKK territory, because maybe I don't have privilege there. And I started to think, maybe people we need to sit and talk to each other with examples of what is privilege and what do you have that I don't have, or what do you think you have that I don't have? So I would say communication is a major thing.
Jordan, do you have anything to add? You know, what are some of the most urgent things that need to be addressed in order to end anti-Blackness?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm just taking in what Ms. shared and like yes, that's such an amazing example of privilege. Things that you just shared, and like we all have privilege, and I think some folks and I would dare like even say BIPOC folks have privilege too and don't want to like I think like male bodied privilege is a thing, thin body privilege. Like I identify as fat, like, and I am a fat person. Like there's a lack of privilege in some ways and a privilege in those ways. So like I'm saying this, I'm looking at the camera, anybody that has, even if you think you have privilege, to really interrogate what that privilege is and how you can. I also would say there are several things I'm trying to like riff off here. The first thing for people, look at your friend group. Like this sounds so simple, but like look at your friend group. How many friends of color and Black friends do you have? I grew up, where I grew up, I didn't have any white friends growing up. And like when I moved here, all I had was white friends. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I feel like I have lost my diversity in just like my sphere of people. And I had to like really seek like diverse, like, and so I know like some people that you only have white friends. Like if you only have white friends, that is your first step to dismantling your anti-Blackness. Why do you only have white friends that look like you? How, if you're an organization, I also would say look at your internal and also look at your website. There's some organizations that I know that have Black folks on their team, but their website only features their their C-suite level people. And so two things within that: if your C-suite is all white people, there's a problem there. If you only have your C-suite and they're all white people, but you have Black staff, show all your staff. Like if people are like, if your website or Instagram is your entry point to your organization, like really look at who people are seeing from that entry point, right? So I think like organizationally, look about who's in your staff and how you actually represent them, how you reflect the community that you say you're trying to serve and support. If just as a person, think about your friendship circles, period. Like pay Black people for their work. I think one part of like anti-Blackness is not having a willingness to pay us for our worth or our value. I am having an audacious moment, but like even in this event right now, like I know like Pride has supported the coalition immensely in so many ways, right? And in this moment, like we're not being paid for this event, and also Pride supported us in amazing ways. So like it is a really beautiful exchange that we're doing this event, right? But like I would say if it was an outside, I would say like pay them for this hour of work. You know, pay Black folks to racism trainings and pay them their actual rate. Don't underpay them. I'll also really be mindful of like the articles that you share, that you read, like read Black voices, read voices of color, read Jewish voices, read fat voices, like really like this. I would say like I think people are looking for like a systems level change, but like you can't address the system if you aren't addressing your own system and yourself. So really look at what your systems internally, and I'm not looking at not you Yinka, like at people watching this, like look at your internal systems of who you are and take stock of how you perpetuate anti-Blackness and racism as a whole, and then really interrogate that, and that's how you can then begin to do that outwardly to the external, to the systems that we're trying to change now. Because so many folks want to do systems change but never want to change themselves, and like that is the shit. Excuse me, see my language. That's the stuff that I'm not down with. I need us to do it for ourselves first before we can do it at least. My soapbox. So sorry. I'm like, wow.
So you and Vertez both mentioned communication, which I 100% agree with. I think conversations need to be had, right? When we talk about anti-Blackness, who needs to start the conversation? Is my question to both of you. Is it a Black person or is it a white person or a non-Black person? Who starts that conversation?
I would say the conversations. Actually, sorry. May I may I just pop in? I'm just feeling a lot of types of ways. The conversation has already started. It's already been started. Like, and Black folks have already initiated the conversation to begin with. So now other folks need to actually join in and have the conversation. Like, and I feel like oftentimes we're talking to walls. We're like literally saying the things that people need to hear, and they're not opening the door for us. So I would say oftentimes Black folks have already initiated conversations. White folks or people who are in privilege need to actually open the door, the window, the phone, something to actually be willing to have the conversation. Because it's there. It's there for anybody who wants to pick up the phone and listen.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. With me, I would think if I make myself vulnerable to you, that means I trust you somewhat. And so that opens the door for you to become vulnerable to me. And if I say an example like what I gave and someone says to me, I never thought of that. And I said, then we could go on from that because there's a trust. So I would say, if I want to find out how Jordan feels, then I would want to make myself vulnerable to Jordan first. Because I want what he has and I want to give him what I have. So to me, being vulnerable is really strength. If you can say, this is how I feel, that takes a strong person. It's like coming out. Like today, just as an example, I said, today when I sent out an invitation and I waited till the last minute to send this out to people, and I put in there, please send a prayer for me that I don't make a boo-boo. But it was another way of coming out, because maybe everybody on my Facebook page did not know that I was a lesbian. And so I did not put he or she there. No, it took me, I was 10 years old when I found out the word lesbian, and I read it and it matched what I was thinking. And then it took me another 100 years to say, I am a lesbian. So when I say to you, Jordan, I am a lesbian, then you should be free to say to me, I am whoever you are. Because you have something on me, and so that's the way I feel. I don't know if you can understand that. I feel that way.
Okay, I understand. Jordan, do you have anything to add on to that?
Thank you. Like, just thank you. I'm just like, wow. I'm just like, oh, I feel that. I mean, and I just want to plus one it, and also that want to just add, like, that is what I feel like the Black community is constantly doing. We are saying, we're being vulnerable, saying we're tired of dying. Please stop killing us. Please help us live. Like, we are doing that every day. And so I think to the point that Ms. Vertez just made, like, now what we need is for whoever's receiving that to say, you are being killed, and I'm contributing to that, to that disproportionate impact. I don't want to be killed too. I want to help you, like that. And I think that, like, that's what we're waiting for. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, because that was just such a beautiful way of putting it, particularly through the vulnerability.
Agreed.
Oh, thank you.
What inspires you most about the Black LGBTQ plus community?
That I'm a member of it. In fact, like a lot of people say, when I went to the center the first time in '85, I was scared to go because I'd never been any place where you walk into a room and they're all lesbians there, and they know they're lesbians, and they know you're a lesbian, and you walk into that room, and I was scared. And then I said, but I have a right to be here. As long as I say that to myself, I have a right to be here. I walk in, and this is my right. Just like being an American citizen. I have a right to be in America. Be Black or whatever. This is my country. And I've done some things for it. And I have a right to be here. You can't kick me out. Keep that in your head. Even if you have to die, I have a right. I don't know if you understood that. I go off on a tangent sometimes. Okay, I shut up now.
We are right there with you. Jordan, what about what inspires you most about the Black LGBTQ plus community?
Mr. Vertez, I just want to first of all say, like, I really hope you don't have to feel like you have to apologize at all, because like we're feeling what you're saying. And I've also been looking at the comments on Facebook. People are feeling what you're saying. Like, you aren't just saying, you are doing what needs to be done, to be said, and people are feeling it. So I just want to really affirm that. Like, I hope, like, please don't apologize. Like, nothing to apologize for. I'm like, whew. Like, you inspire me in this moment. You inspire me so much this very moment. So what inspires me, I think like, is our audacity. Like, we have the audacity to exist as Black folks and as queer and trans folks. Like, those are two, like, very different yet very well connected identities, that we have the audacity to exist as both and all the above at the same time. And like, within that brings in our vernacular, our humor, our magic, our might. Like, I love, like, I really, oh my gosh, emotional. I love being Black, and for me, like, it's hard to say because I experienced a lot of, like, invalidation of my Blackness for myself, and I experienced a lot from folks growing up, and now I do it too. But like, I love my Blackness, and I love being who I am, and I love being queer. Like, those are the parts of me that I love the most. And so what inspires me is our audacity to do it. You know, when we have our hashtag exist Blackly, like, that inspires me, because we are being so bold to exist Blackly in this world that tells us that Black isn't cute, that Black is dangerous, that Black isn't safe. Like, we're having the audacity to say we're existing, like, we're existing in spite of that. I think of this quote from Audre Lorde, and this is like a paraphrase version, but like, when I recognize how powerful I am, it is less important that I am afraid. And like, that's what I think about how the Black community inspires me the most. We are afraid every day, and yet we show up and show out. And I just, yeah, that really, like, hits my soul. Every chance that I think about it hits my soul.
Ms. Vertez?
No, I was just going to say, one of the things I always say is that there must be a reason I was born into this world, because I was born into a society where it is not good to be Black. It is not good to be a female. It is not good to be overweight. It is not good to be poor. And then I'm gay. I said, well, I got everything. God has put me into a culture where everything I am is something that's looked down upon. So I must fight to get up. And I say, must be a reason for that. You know, I don't think God would put you someplace where there was not lessons to learn. That's my thoughts. And so I always think of that when something's going on. I was put here for a reason. And that's for me to learn something. That's my personal.
Thank you, Ms. Vertez. We could just stay here and talk to you all day long, all day long. So we are all in San Diego. What are some of your most favorite Black-owned businesses that either you support or we should be supporting in San Diego?
There's an amazing crystal shop in Barrio Logan called Agevco, and they are actually a Black queer owned shop. The owner and her wife, they are amazing. I love it. I have crystals here right now to guide me through this moment. I often go. I live in University Heights, and so down the street from me is Flavors of East Africa. My restaurants, like, Such good food. My roommate and I often order from Shot Caller Street Soul Food. I'm also trying to think of like black queer businesses. I'm like I really couldn't black queer businesses. I'm also thinking of Miss Friday and Strawberry Corn Cakes, two amazing black queer and trans performers. I'm a non-binary performers here in San like whenever they have shows, supporting them. Not so like an own business, but like for people that we should be thinking about. Um, do I think of any more? And can't think of anything more in this moment. With those for sure.
Miss Vertez, do you have any
Yeah.
favorite Black-owned?
Yeah, I do have a favorite black owned, and it'd be crazy for me to say I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it's it's in Balboa Park, and it's a vegan restaurant, and it's
Is it Spoiled Vegan?
no, it's not called vegan. It's called the name of the God, I can't. This is they don't tell you this when you come into the world or when you finish high school or anything. But once you get over 65, the memory starts to go. That's some free advice I just gave y'all. Nobody told me it was going to go this fast, though. But anyway, it's a vegan restaurant in over in Balboa Park, next to where Larry. There are two. There's the African American.
World Beat Cafe.
That's it.
Thank you, Miss Jen.
Thank you for being so young, Yinka. Thank you, World Beat.
It was all Jen. That was all Jen.
I was like, please tell us. I love me some vegan restaurants. I was like, please tell us what this place is so we can go.
It's affordable
Yes.
and it's good, and they have their own vegetable garden and everything.
Great. Great. Well, thank you. World
Thank
Beat
you.
Cafe. There it is. Yes,
Yes.
next to
World Beat.
Central Cultural. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Well, now you all viewers go check out some Black-owned restaurants, businesses all throughout San Diego. Vertez, Jordan, Pamela, who had to leave early. Thank you, all three of you, so very much for joining me, joining the viewers, and sharing this space with us and our LGBTQ plus community today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for thinking of me.
Thank you. Same. Thank you, Pride, for being willing to hold this space and to listen. Like that's exactly part of the work. So thank you, and thank you, Yinka, as well for this amazing conversation.
Oh,
Like
you
just
are very
thank you.
welcome. Of course, it's a conversation that needs to continue to be had.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you both. So as we are wrapping up, I would like to thank the Pride staff, Melanie Mijares and Alex Villaforte for their behind the scenes support today. Remember to tune in to our next virtual event, Queering Sports, on Wednesday, March 2nd at 12 p.m. Pacific. And if you've enjoyed today's panel and would like to see more of these types of programs, please visit sdpride.org/donate to make a donation. Last but not least, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in today and spending your lunch hour with myself and our wonderful panelists. Thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.